Well, I think I'll begin then, and I'm sure people will continue to keep joining us. But welcome to today's webinar, Communities, Parks, and People, How to Live Older, Healthier, and Happier. So I'd like to acknowledge that today's webinar is provided with support from a TD Parks People grant. My name's Karen Whalen, and I'm the Executive Director of Active Aging in Manitoba, or AIM, and the host of today's webinar. AIM is a not-for-profit provincial organization housed in the Wellness Institute in the north end of Winnipeg. AIM is dedicated to the promotion of active aging opportunities for all older Manitobans to enhance their health, mobility, and participation in the community. We are absolutely delighted to have Gil Penalosa facilitate today's webinar. Before I introduce him to you, I'd just like to say, if you have any questions about today, as you're listening to today's webinar, you can put them in the chat box on your screen at any time during the presentation, and we'll try to address them at the end of the webinar, just to keep with the flow. So Gil Penalosa, some of you may have heard him before speak and know how passionate he is about the subject matter. He's passionate about creating a vibrant and healthy cities for all people. Because of his unique blend of experience, pragmatism, and passion, he has been invited to work in over 350 different cities in all continents. Gil is the founder and chair of the internationally recognized Canadian not-for-profit organization 880 Cities. He is also the first ambassador of World Urban Parks and creator of the project Our Third Act. Before immigrating to Canada, he was commissioner in Bogota, where he led the construction of over 200 parks and the development of a new ciclovia, I hope I'm saying that right, where each Sunday, 1 of 4 citizens participate. He holds an MBA from UCLA's Anderson School of Management, where he was selected as one of the 100 most inspirational alumni in the school's history. Gil received a doctorate honoris causa from the Faculty of Urban Planning at the prominent university in Sweden, SLU. Last year, Gil was in Planetizen's top 50 most influential urbanists and recently received in Australia the World Urban Parks Annual Distinguished Individual Award. I'll turn things over now to you, Gil. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me fine?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. So I want to share some ideas on communities, parks, people, how to live older, healthier, and happier. 39.6. That's the increase of life expectancy in Canada over the last 150 years. 39 years. 25 years is the increase of life expectancy in the last 100. This is amazing. I mean, a few months ago, we celebrated 50 years when man went to the moon. But I think this is much more relevant, much more important. Can you imagine? We've been around for over 200,000 years. And up till 150 years ago, our life expectancy was only 39. Only 39. So in 200,000 years, the life expectancy was 39. And in only 150 years, we doubled the life expectancy. And mostly it's healthy years. And this is important because, but why is there such a negative perception of people living longer? Our heart, our minds stay young, even if our body goes aging. I mean, like George Bernard Shaw said, we don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing. And we are happy and we are full of life. And people tend to think that is the great tsunami. What? The great tsunami? I mean, if we view aging as a decline, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. It does become a decline. We need to stop ageism. Ageism is discrimination by age. Don't do this because you are a child. Don't talk about politics because you are too young. Or don't work because you are too old. We need to stop that. By the way, in all of the research, it shows clearly around happiness that the two periods of our lives when we're the happiest is in our childhood and in our older age. So let's keep this in mind. And everybody keeps thinking about Alzheimer. The reality is that only 1 out of 10 people get Alzheimer. The other 90% get anxiety of Alzheimer. We forget someone's name and we say, oh my God, I'm getting it. We forget the kids. Oh, we are getting it. No, ageism is dumb. Ageism is dumb. Even if well intended, like Toronto has been filled up all of this, many streets with these dumb signs: senior safety zone begins and ends. And it's only 3 blocks at a time. What are you going to arrive on a helicopter and then you're going to walk 3 blocks and then you're going to leave? On a civilized city, the whole city has to be safe. But also, it's not about age. It's not about age. Seniors don't need any special zones. Most seniors don't have issues of mobility. Anybody with disability needs special areas, whether they are 10 years or 30 or 50 or 80 or 100. Ageism is prejudice against our children, prejudice against our parents, prejudice against our own future selves. I mean, aging is not a problem to solve or a disease to cure. Aging is living. Aging is living. So I invite all of you, let's fight ageism. No more too old or too young on anything. Blaming elders for everything that has gone bad, it doesn't improve anything. It doesn't improve from this negative practice. And yes, life expectancy has increased. By the way, not just in Manitoba, everywhere. Look, only 200 years ago, these dots are the countries in the world. 200 years ago, we didn't have any country with a life expectancy above 45. Today, we don't have any country with a life expectancy below 45. By the way, this is vaccination. This is vaccination. Clean water, sewage, and vaccination is what double the life expectancy. And we're living longer, not longer, much, much, much longer. And it's exciting. Think about this. The people that have ever lived over 60 in the history of humanity, half are alive today. Half. This is exciting. What is happening with life? And you know, the people over 60 around the world, we have about 960 million. Within 30 years, we're going to more than double the people over 60. And people are enjoying gardening and their ice cream and playing with their grandchildren. Let's keep in mind the population over 60 in Manitoba is going to double, and the population over 80 is going to quadruple. That's why I think that I'm promoting a movement around our third act: older, healthier, and happier. I mean, our life, we can divide it up like in 3 acts. 1 act is since we're born to their 20s, when we are very dependent. We are going to school and learning how to survive more or less. Then from the 20s to the late 50s, then we're working, some have children, we work, we get around. And then the third act is from the 60s till the end of life. And that is a full third of our life. It's a full third. It's not just a few years. It's a full third of our lives. And we can live healthier and happier. By the way, people tend to think that we're very dependent. Only the last 3 to 5 years we're dependent. So that's about 15% of our life as older adults. The other 25 years we're very independent. That's almost 85%. So when we're talking about active living, we, of course, those people, that 15% has to be healthier and happier, but that 85% can be very, very active. Both dependent and independent older adults must live healthier and happier than what people are doing now. So what is the role of outdoor activity in older adults in living healthier and happier? So this is what our third act is so critical, because we need to go to the parks and we need to walk and we can go swimming and painting and doing activities. I mean, when in Canada, we have doubled the life expectancy in only 150 years. We learn how to survive. But when we have issues like equity and climate change and public health, it's clear that we must learn how to live, and parks and outdoors activities, and within an urban world, because in Canada, almost 9 out of 10 people live in an urban world. You know, today, around the world, 3.5 billion people live in urban areas. Within the lifetime of our children, we're going to double. We are going to double the amount of people living in urban areas in the next 30 to 40 years. And it could be very nice and civilized. People walking, riding their bicycles, using public transit, where everyone is going to be enjoying enjoying nature everywhere, at home, in the sidewalks, in the parks, in the places of work. I mean, Canada's population in the next 30 years is going to increase by 7 million. What does 7 million mean? 7 million is the population of the 5 largest cities. We're going to do a Toronto, Montreal, Calgary, Ottawa, and Edmonton in 30 years. And all of it is going to move into urban areas, whether it is cities of 10,000 people or 100,000 or 1 million. This is like doing 2.5 Toronto. This is like doing 10 Winnipegs in 30 years. So if this is going to happen in the next 40 years, 30 to 40 years, let's see what we've been doing in the last. The reality is that this is how we've been doing cities, segregating, sending the poor people to the worst places, even in the wealthiest country in the world. Look, this is the US by postal codes. The cities, the postal codes in dark red, the life expectancy is around 60. The postal codes in pink is about 90. How can we even accept that this is normal when we have some people, just because by act of God or whatever, you are born in one postal code and your life expectancy is going to be 50% more than if you are born in another postal code? In the last 30 to 40 years, we've been focusing on cars, 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 and not on people's happiness. And this is how we've been trying to solve mobility. And we haven't even solved mobility by investing all of these billions. The cities do not decide the what, but the cities decide the how. And this is how we've been doing cities: no trees, no parks. Actually, instead of parks, we've been doing parking lots. It's really incredible how bad we've been doing the cities. Imagine the children, the elderly, people with disabilities. They become kind of dependent on someone just to go out for an ice cream. So the last 40 years overwhelmingly has been very bad, the way we're doing cities, mediocre or horrible, with very isolated exceptions like acupuncture. So we need to improve the communities that we have today. And we gotta create cities for many more people. We need to plan our communities radically different and manage them radically different. And we have an opportunity, but also we have a huge responsibility, because that's where people are gonna live for hundreds of years. I mean, let's think about the context. I mean, age, you know, in Canada, about 85% of the people say they wanna age in place. They want to age in place. So for that, we need to have sustainable mobility, walking and cycling and transit. And when we were thinking about that, how to age in place and how to deal with climate change, where we see the symptoms everywhere, all of a sudden COVID arrived. COVID-19 arrived, and some people say all change. Unfortunately, I don't think all change. I think more our perception has changed. COVID-19 is like if we have gotten some magnifying glasses to see our cities, how we've been doing our cities, and all of a sudden something that we thought was invisible became visible. We saw homeless on the streets, on the parking lots, in the parks, even though 80% of the hotel rooms were empty. How could we do this? This was shameful. At the same time, with fewer cars, people working from home, we saw how the air got cleaner. So something that we almost thought it was invisible became visible. So we need to decide, do we want to go back to this, or do we want cleaner air? It's up to all of us. How are we going to move? What are we going to do? What kind of communities in Manitoba do we want? How do we want to live? And I think everything we do in the communities in Manitoba in the post-COVID has to be around health, equity, sustainability. And when I'm talking about health, I'm talking about the definition of the World Health Organization. It's the state of physical, mental, and social well-being. It's not just not being sick. Also, when I'm talking about sustainability, I'm talking about sustainable happiness, which is the happiness that contributes to the individual, the community, or the global well-being, as long as it doesn't exploit other people, the environment, or future generations. And when we're talking about equity, I'm talking about giving everyone what they need to be successful. It's very different from equality, that is giving everybody the same. Someone did a cartoon that describes this, interesting. Equality, no. Some people are starting so far behind that some might need 2 or 3 boxes. Others don't need any box. And someone said, if that's equality and that is equity, maybe this is reality. It's worse than what we think. But maybe at Active Aging Manitoba, you really think outside the box and you say it's not about moving boxes. Maybe it's about tearing down the wall. We got to come up with different solutions. When I was saying we need to plan our communities radically different. And equity, we need most ensure equity before we can even think about equality. So how do you want the communities in Manitoba to become? That is the question. And we really have an opportunity to create communities that are equitable and sustainable, where older adults are going to be healthier and happier. And I know that COVID-19 has been horrible, but a horrible situation sometimes becomes like an opportunity. When there were not enough parks, and when we see Winnipeg from the air, or any city from the air, between 25 and 35% of the area, 1/3 of our city are streets. So people open up streets to people and close them to cars. And all of a sudden people started coming out. Oakland, California, they turned all of the neighborhood streets, into slow streets. What are the slow streets? Are streets that are only for the cars of the people that live on the street. If you are going from point A to point B on an arterial and there is a traffic jam, you cannot go through the neighborhood streets. You need to wait on the arterial. The neighborhood streets, all of a sudden, children, older adults, people on wheelchairs, people with disabilities started coming out because it was safe. And they did the whole city within 24 hours. This is doable in any community. In Manitoba, communities of 10,000, 100,000, or 1 million people. It's just the neighborhood streets are just for the local traffic, and we're going to have cleaner air, less noise, and it's going to be safe. I mean, with fewer cars, we also saw how people started doing bicycle corridors, connecting the whole city, not doing 1 or 2, but doing dozens and dozens and dozens of kilometers so that there can be connectivity. Because if there's not connectivity, people are not going to ride their bicycles. And then it was something that substantially increased the use of the bicycles. Things that we thought it would take years or months, all of a sudden it was taking weeks to do bus-only lanes. And this is also something that can be done in any community in Manitoba very, very fast. All of a sudden, people started doing markets on the streets. We realized that the streets are public space. They belong to everybody. In San Francisco, they turned golf courses into public parks. So instead of having 200 people using the golf course, all of a sudden, they got thousands and thousands of people using the public park. This is about equity. The impossible became possible, and people were so happy about it. So when I was talking about the opportunities, people think, oh, it's going to be easy. Now we're going to be doing linear parks on top of the streets, which we should. I mean, 30% of our cities are streets. We should turn some of those into parks, or half of them. But no, it's not going to be that easy, unfortunately, because there's many other people that are moving in the wrong direction. They want more cars, more isolated, more sprawl, more bad for climate change and for everything. So how can active aging help have longer and happier and healthier lifestyles? I am very much on the over 60 because I also have a grandchild now. I'm the founder and chair of 880 Cities. What is 880 Cities? 880 Cities is not about parks or streets or walking or cycling. Those are the means, not the end. The end is how can we help create successful cities? And when I used to go to the cities to speak before COVID, I used to see where I was going to speak. And I was going to speak in this area. And then I said, oh my God, how am I going to compete with these people dancing? And then I saw the DJ Vika. I told you we're living longer. Vika is a businesswoman, an entrepreneur. She goes from park to park, from city to city, organizing dances mostly for older people. So that's what 880 is. It's about healthy communities where people are going to live happier. And when you think about it, you know, can my grandparents walk to get eggs or milk, or ride their bike to the park, or take a walk to public transit? Simple. It's the 380 rule of common sense. Unfortunately, common sense seems to be the least common of the senses. Step number one, think of a child that you love, your son, your daughter, your grandchild. Once you have that boy or girl around 8 years old in mind, think step number two, think of an 80-year-old person that also you love, your parents, your grandparents. And once you have the child and the older adult, then step number three, would you send them across that intersection? Would you just send them walking to the park or to take public transit? Would they feel safe? If they would, it's because it's safe enough. If they would not, it's because it's not, and we gotta do it better. What if everything that you did in the communities of Manitoba, everything, the sidewalk, the crosswalk, the park, the library, the school, the business, the convenience, everything had to be great for an 8 and an 80-year-old? It's not 8 to 80. No, it's 8 and 80 as an indicator species. Because if it's good for the 8 and it's good for the 80, it's going to be good for everybody from 0 to over 100. We need to stop building our communities as if everybody was 30-year-old and athletic. And let's create communities for everyone. That's what 880 City is about. It's about communities for all. And the nice thing is that communities that are good for older people are also good for everyone. So that's why we gotta get people moving on this issue. And how is that parks and outdoor activity are going to contribute? I want to tell you about 5 actions that are interlinked into individual action as well as community. 5 actions to well-being. What are, and I'm going to tell you 10 must-have in activity and others. The 5 actions. Well, part of this, you know, is concerned what the World Health Organization came up with, age-friendly communities, and they have 8 different areas of action. In the US, AARP has worked with these 8 activities and have now over 400 cities engaged in this. Others think it's kind of like magical, is there are secrets. No, there are no secrets to living longer. If we're going to live happier and healthier and longer, I think let's think about 30% is genetic and medical care, and there is very little we can do about it. But 70% is about our social, our behavior, our environmental impacts, and that's where active aging can play a huge role in this 70%. I mean, if we need to recreate cities for older people so that they're going to be good for everybody. I mean, there are some ingredients. It's like if we're going to do a salad, we invite people, we're going to do a salad, we don't put anything on it, it's going to be spiceless. So our guests, either we get ingredients and do a better salad, or they're going to go somewhere else. So we get the ingredients and then we improve, you know, we improve the beginning, so much better salads, and then we're going to improve everything. So the same thing happens to have equitable and sustainable communities where people are going to live healthier and happier. It's about the well-being. It's about being well. So it's not about magic. It's about these 5 actions. First, we need to eat more plant-based. We need to have farmers markets. And even in the wintertime, let's put them inside a community center where people can go and chat. We need to have urban gardening in the parks, in the libraries, in the schools, so that everybody learns that the tomatoes don't come out of a factory. Where we have also older adults working with children on all of this. I'm not asking you to be vegetarian, but think about this. If all of us on the call ate half as much meat, if every one of us ate half as much meat as we usually do, the impact is the same as if half of us had become vegetarians. It could be a huge impact. No, we need to sleep. People tend to think that older people don't need to sleep. Yeah, older people too need to sleep 7 or 8 hours every night. Yes, I know that they are homeless, and I'm not talking about that, because yes, a place to sleep, it must be a human rights issue. But nevertheless, homeless people need to be welcome to the parks, not to sleep in the park, not to live in the parks, because the parks are not places to live. But of course, they must be welcome. But we need to have those 7 or 8 hours of sleep. Otherwise, that's where the memory doesn't work. Anybody, you might be 20 years old. If you sleep only 5 hours a night, the next day you're gonna forget names. You're gonna forget where you put the keys. You are not gonna do well at school. If you are 20, if you are 40, if you are 60, you are 80, it doesn't really matter. So let's think about the equity of housing as a human right. 3, we must socialize. Socialize. That's part of also being active, going to the parks, going to the stores, being active and socializing with others. Sometimes the walking is the excuse, but in the reality is that we need to be with others. We need to socialize. And that is something, loneliness is really critical. It's not about how to teach older people to do knitting in the front of the screen. It's about having people doing knitting in the middle of the park, knit and talk. Wonderful activities. 4, we need to have contact with nature. Contact with nature. I mean, the nature, if something has come out of COVID, is that nature is good, not only for physical health, but it's also great for mental health. And it's something that is really fantastic. So if we do all of these activities and we do them outdoors, it's going to be better. We need to have contact with nature. It must be easy, free, accessible. And 5, we need physical activity. Physical activity everywhere. Physical. This is a team of 80-year-olds. I mean, if we're physically active, it decreases the premature death, the strokes, many cancers. Is going to improve mental health, less heart disease, type 2 diabetes. I mean, it's fantastic. Older adults, we only need to do 30 minutes a day. It doesn't even have to be 30 at the same time. It can be 15 minutes in the morning, 15 in the afternoon, but it has to be 5 or more days a week. 5 or more days. So there's an urgency to be physically active. There is no magic pill. Everybody look, no, there is no magic pill. The only way that the communities in Manitoba are going to be physically active is if people walk or bike or play as a normal part of everyday life, in the parks, in the trails, and the sidewalks. So we really need to work. It's not about doing marathons. I mean, some do, but it's just about 30. It's just 30 minutes a day. So those are the 5 actions. And let's keep in mind: they eat more plant-based, they sleep 7 or 8 hours, contact with nature, socialize, and physical activity. 30 minutes, 5 or more days a week. So that's about what active aging in Manitoba is about. And many of them are very linked also to the outdoor places and to the parks, the contact with nature, the socialize, the physical activity. Also, they eat more plant-based. So now we went through these 5 actions, I want to take you quickly through 10 ideas for active communities. What are some of these 10 ideas? 1, I mean, I have a long love affair with parks. In my previous life, I've been in Canada now for 22 years, but before I was commissioner in Bogota, and I led the design and construction of over 200 parks all over the city, small ones, big ones. This was one of them. This is how it was before. The Pope came, gave a mass for 1 million people, and then he left and nothing happened. They were not even cited for 27 years. Why nothing happened? Because change is hard. In Manitoba or in Bogota or anywhere, because you try to change and the cave people show up. You know them because they are everywhere. They are the citizens against virtually everything. But that's why you need to be there and be active. Older people can be fantastic advocates on creating great communities for everyone. Don't take no for an answer. They find that little crack through the window and run through it. This is how it was for 27 years, and this is how it was in only 4 years. We turned it into the nicest park for active, for passive, for contemplative recreation, for people of all ages and abilities. And this is something that could be done anywhere. And I'm talking about Bogota because, 1, I led this, but also because it's very low income compared to any community in Manitoba. So if we were able to do it, you can do it anywhere. And it's a fantastic park. Also, I took a program that was a few kilometers and a few thousand people, and we turned it into the world's largest pop-up park. Sunday mornings, we pop it up. And simple, you can do it in communities of 50,000 or 100,000 or a million. Open street to people, close into cars, and the magic happens. All of that, you could do this in Manitoba from May to September, October. We did 121 kilometers linking all of the major parks, and then people come out and walk. And this is young and old and rich and poor. And this is something that is really great for integration and for social connectivity, getting everybody, the owners of the large corporations and the minimum wage workers, engaged. 1 out of 4 people come out every Sunday of the year. It changes minds, which is important. It reminds people that the streets are public space. All of a sudden people realize, oh, maybe we should do this more often, or maybe we should have protected bike lanes. And again, it's done in cities of 50,000 like some of these, or cities of 10 million like some of these. So it works either way. It's about social integration. It's about health, and it's about mental and physical. It's also good for quality of air. You take the samples of air at 10 o'clock when you have an open streets on Sunday, and you do it the same place on Monday, and it's totally different. We meet each other as equals, and that is something that is very powerful. That's why hundreds of cities are doing it. And also, I'm very involved with World Urban Parks, which has to do with active agent. I was elected chair for the last 2 terms, and now I'm their ambassador. It's basically World Urban Parks is we value parks and we network with people from all over the world. And it would be great if many communities of Manitoba could become members. We do congresses and we have advocacy. One of the committees is on older adults and parks. And if you want to know more, that is the website, World Urban Parks. And these are some of the 350 communities where I've been in the last 20 years. And the ideas that I was going to take, always focus on benefits, benefits, benefits. Active older adults is going to be good for the culture, for education, for happiness, for the environment. It has so many benefits. So don't just talk about active. No, say, oh, we're going to talk about economic development. For example, equity. Equity is critical. It must be a priority of everything. The vulnerable older adults have to be our top priority. And who are the older adults vulnerable? The poor, the people with disabilities, the racial minorities, the ethnic minorities. So active aging Manitoba must also have that as priority. We need to focus on it because there's a lot of people that are struggling. And magnificent President Jimmy Carter came to Calgary in 2017 to work. So older adults were givers. Older adults were not takers. I mean, let's think of the 10, 20, 30. What is 10, 20, 30? Every older adult must have a quality park within a 10-minute walk by 2030. We need to do it now. I mean, we need to have parks or play areas within a short walk. In the US, 1 out of 3 people that live in cities do not have a park within walking distance. I mean, we need to change these issues everywhere. But in Manitoba, think of that, 10, 20, 30. The neighborhood park within a 10-minute walk and an activity park within a 20-minute walk. Another idea, we need infrastructure, older walking paths, like restaurants. I mean, we know what older people want. Walking paths and benches are the #1, but also we need game tables and restaurants. And the restaurants is not just for the summer. Parks and streets and public spaces are 365 days of the year. And we need to have trees and plants. And it's not just doing the walking path, but also we need to organize activities, walking groups. And this is completely, and it doesn't have to be gigantic. Like this is in front of a library in Singapore, just a small loop. And then they put how long is the loop and how many if you do 1, 2, 3. So then people go home and say, oh, today I did 3.5 kilometers. Oh, how do you know? Oh, because it says here 10 laps, 3.5 kilometers. So let's do these kind of things that help people. And let's promote that people go with their friends. This is really nice in Charlotte, a park that half of it is for children, half of it is for adults, for older adults. It's really great, the activity. There are many, many ways, and we need to have the places where people on the wheelchair can come, and people with walkers, and people with disabilities, or if people just want to read in the park, which can be how to socialize. We need benches, 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 places to see uses and activities. It's not just the infrastructure what are some of the activities? People want to walk, but also gardening, knitting, tai chi, yoga, reading, bird watching, bocce, chess. I mean, just being with people. The socializing is something that is critical. Loneliness has become a huge problem around the world. So we need to promote activities where people can be with others. The activity is kind of the excuse. At the end of the day, people are going is because they are lonely and they want to be with others. So having activities and all kinds of activities is something that is very important. Facilitate, promote, encourage, have courses, and it's critical. So let's do programs, not events. It's not like the Canada Day once a year. No, it's about programs every week or every day or every month or so on. We need to have that continuity. It's really critical, whether it's people knitting in the park or it's people doing yoga in the park. Something that has come out of Japan is Shirin-yoku. What is Shirin-yoku? It's forest bathing. Go to the parks, look at the trees, and when you are in nature, don't use your phone, even don't talk to anyone, even just for 10 minutes. Focus on the feel in the air, focus on the smell, focus on touching the trees. It's spending time around trees, it's spending time in nature. Even in the middle of the winter, you can do it. I mean, I was in Winnipeg in the middle of the winter when the river was frozen, and I went jogging, I went running, and then there was a path for people walking or running, and another one for people skating. So it's about contemplating. Take time to listen to the birds and to everything. So we doing physical activity surrounded by nature is kind of magical. It's something that we need to do much more than indoors. Let's keep in mind that nature, being outdoor, is not a summer activity. It's a 4-season activity. When I was working in Canberra in Australia, I went on tours, guided tours in the parks in the middle of the night, and it was something very different. Allotment gardens have community because people help each other and they talk about it. So allotment garden, we should have multiple allotment gardens everywhere. Another idea, walking. Why am I talking about walking? Because every trip to a park begins and ends by walking. That's how we are. The birds fly, the whales swim, people, we walk. We walk even in the middle of the storms with our children, with our babies. We walk. Maybe it's because we are so happy when we're walking. We use all our senses. We see the children playing. We hear the birds singing. We're going from a coffee shop and we smell the aroma. Parents and children walk. Grandparents walk. We need walking is really kind of magical at any time of the year, but we need to make it safe. And in most cities, it is not safe. It is not safe. This is not safe. And we know what needs to be done. For example, inside of the park, there should be no cars at any time. And if you have cars, they should be at the speed of the pedestrians. Park cars on inside parks at 5 or 10 kilometers an hour. Around the parks, in front of every park in any city in Manitoba, it should be, maybe half a kilometer around the park and also half a kilometer around the schools. Speed maximum limit 30 kilometers an hour. No one more than 30 kilometers. I mean, older adults, yes, as we age, we decrease our sight, our hearing, and walking speed, our concentration. So we need mobility aids and we need the cars to go slower. So we need to, and it's any time of the year, in the middle of the winter, in the middle of the summer, with people that come from different places and different backgrounds and different activities. And it's not because it sounds nice. It's if a person gets hit by a driver using a car at 30 kilometers an hour, there's 5% probability of being killed. At 50 kilometers an hour is 85%. And there are many studies that show exactly the same things. This is really an issue of life or death. We know what needs to be done. I mean, if we have a small island on the crosswalk, we eliminate more than half of the incidents. Why are we doing crosswalk without a small island in the middle, where we know people don't cross in one light, then they wait and they cross in the second light? Older adults are the people that are killed the most in intersections. We need to have cities where people first, it has to be the top priority. And it's not people first when we do cities where we break up the city and we do this kind of highways and horrors that break up. Look at these sidewalks. Can you imagine? It looks like a roller coaster for the pedestrian. They put lights on the sidewalk, but not so nice when they put the post in the middle of the sidewalk. Imagine on a wheelchair or on a walker. So we need to change how we do things. This is a brand new sidewalk done last year, and instead of doing perfectly flat, they do it up and down, up and down, up and down. Who's going to use it? It doesn't make a lot of sense. This is not people-friendly sidewalks. Or when we do these bridges just so that the cars are going to go faster. No, the priority is people, and it should be a level. Imagine going up 50 steps and then another 50 steps. No, have the car stop, put a nice crosswalk, or else only those dogs are going to be using that. So it's almost telling these people you are a second-class citizen every single day when we don't even do sidewalks. It is really, really important. I mean, sidewalks, we told people, go to the sidewalk and be 2 meters physically distance. Most cities didn't even have 2-meter wide sidewalks. Sidewalks is where is almost the most important infrastructure in any city. I mean, on the street, on bicycles, on public transit, or on cars, we go from point A to point B. But on sidewalks, we meet our neighbors, we meet boyfriends and girlfriends, and we meet the person selling fruits and flowers and coffee and so on. People use the sidewalks in the summer, people use them in the winter. Children catch Pokemon on the sidewalks, so we catch public transit. So the sidewalk is really an element that is critical to have quality. A civilized city really is recognized because it has fantastic sidewalks and it's lively. The sidewalks reminds us that walking is more than walking. When I work in Buenos Aires, I see people dancing tango in the sidewalks. It's amazing. So the sidewalks are almost part of the family of the parks. And of course, sustainable mobility is not just about walking. It's also riding bicycles, using transit, uses of cars. So we need to think about all of these different modes of transportation. I mean, let's think another idea. Parks and outdoor is synonymous of health, physical and mental health, which is something that is, let's remember what I was talking about, the benefits. So how is this going to improve? All of these outdoor activities and so on improve our physical health, but there is no health without mental health. Loneliness increases by almost 30% the probability of heart disease, of strokes, twice the possibility of dementia. The medical officer of the US said loneliness has an impact of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Depression is the world leading cause of disability. If we have contact with nature, it's going to improve our mood, our cognitive attention. So we need to have contact with nature in the summer, in the winter. This is when I was working in Alaska and we went all over the place. But so we need that contact with nature. We need green. If our neighborhoods are green, it's going to lower the depression, the anxiety, the stress. So it's not just because the city looks more beautiful. It's also because we are healthier physically and mentally. So nature is something really important. We need to have nature at home, in the street, in the school, at work, everywhere we need to have. Another idea, we need to volunteer, like Friends of Parks. I mean, volunteer provides happiness, a sense of purpose. So it's very important to have people volunteering, organizing activities for others, gardening. Like I saw in Amherstburg in Ontario, these people had a wonderful group of volunteers taking care of public parks or public gardens, or in other places, people organizing others' activities, volunteers to have public meetings. So Friends of Park is great. And Friends of Park, try to have, when you have a park and you have Friends of Parks, try to have as variety as possible. People with dogs or people that play sports or artists or schools or whatever, not just one group. When I was working in Arizona, I saw the Desert Botanical Garden with 550 volunteers, all over 60. Everyone over 60. Some minimum 2 days a week, maximum 5 days. It gave them a sense of purpose, and it was a win-win. The botanical garden could never hire 500 people, and these people also could never have that sense of purpose. So it is magnificent botanical garden and magnificent volunteering program. Another idea, parks are 365. It's not a summer infrastructure, it's all the time. I mean, COVID showed us that people came out to the parks and the public places, the 4 seasons. So there's no such thing as bad weather. It's bad clothing. So let's get some good clothing and let's go to the parks. I know that in extreme weather is an excuse. Winter. I know that in Manitoba, in many places, you got 15, 20 horrible days of the year. This little girl knows it. But and you got another 45 that are cold, not very nice. But you got over 200 days that are nice. So let's plan the city. Don't focus the city on the horrible days. Focus the city on the 200 good days. And then even the bad days are not gonna be that bad. We need to have a positive attitude. Don't allow people in the media, even now in September, saying, oh, if you can go to Arizona, go to Arizona. If you can go, no. We need to have a positive attitude towards the winter. We need to see how are we going to close some streets and do some ice hockey on the streets and do some yoga and tai chi. Let's have move in the park. But of course, if it's in the middle of the winter, let's have hot chocolate and beaver tails and really good sound and really good screens and make that. Look, this is Winnipeg, this is Manitoba, and you have this magnificent place with the wind areas to cover from the wind and colors and other things. This is ice fishing. So we need to think. One of the things that bothers people more about the winter is not that it's cold, is that it's dark. So put lights, lots of lights. And for example, don't call them Christmas lights, call them winter lights, and put them up at the beginning of November and take them down in March. So have them for 4 months. So people are going to really do nice things in their homes if they know that they're going to be there for 4 months. Another idea, parks integrate, it's not just, it's all thing that is public. Let's integrate, let's have in active aging, let's integrate the schools, the libraries, the streets, everything that is public. For example, let's share whatever is older adults. For example, the schools, we need to open up the schools, especially in the winter, in those horrible winter days. We should be able to go to public schools and do walks around the hallways. Who paid for those schools? Everybody. So sometimes this is how horrible are the playgrounds in the schools. Turn them into this. Trust for Public Land has helped there hundreds of these. Why playground to school park? It's a magnificent possibility, but then open. The condition is that during the school time, it's only for the school, but in the evening, weekends, and holidays, it's for the whole community. It becomes kind of like a community hub. So these are the kind of things that we should be doing. Working in North Carolina, I did some workshops with students from a high school and students from a long-term care homes, and how to integrate. And even we had lunch where half of the table were students, half of the table were older adults. This was amazing what these people from Southminster are doing. This is a multi-generational park that they have for children, have for older adults. And if you don't have the school, let's take over a street and make it a play street. This is totally doable. Let's have people dancing on the streets, literally. Also, advocate for parks and outdoor activity. Older adults, we need to email the elected officials. We need to make phone calls to the radio stations. We need to write the media. We need to be active around these things. In many cases, because now it becomes almost like a 4th-generation parks and public places. We're living longer, so it's very common to see 3 and 4 generations in the park. I mean, this is my grandchild, which I love very, very much. And this is me with 4 generations at the same time. My mom, who is a gardener, and my brothers and cousins and so on. Is the time of older adults and grandchildren is priceless. We need to focus. For example, when cities do a playground, make sure you have benches and a nice cozy place for the grandparents. Otherwise, the grandparents come in, if they need to stand in the middle of the winter or the summer, they get bored in 5 minutes, they want to go home. But if they have a nice place to sit and socialize and have a coffee, so it's important, it becomes a magical relationship of grandparents and grandchildren. So that multi-generational facility, that it helps the aging in place, and it helps the active aging. What a wonderful way to be active aging with your grandchildren, or even with someone else's grandchildren, helping take care of them as caregivers. So it's something that is really, really critical to have this 4th generation activities in the middle of nature. Remember, we said that the post-COVID was around health and equity and sustainability. There's not going to be a Martian coming down in Manitoba saying, you know, I'm going to create conditions for all to be active in the outdoors, to help all their adults live longer, healthier, and happier in Manitoba. No, we must plan our communities radically different and manage them different. This, what I have said today, is not technical issues. These are not financial. This is about policy, but it's not a political from the point of view of parties. Any party, the left, the center, the right, should be concerned about older people living healthier and happier. Everyone should be. This is like that's why we have like a big P. Everybody needs to participate. We need to develop a shared vision or of active living, but we need to act. And if we have all the vision and action, then we are going to have older adults. Keep in mind, we're givers, not takers. We're assets to the community. We are not liabilities. Older adults, we want to have purpose. It's going to help us live healthier and happier. We want to contribute to create the outdoor places and the parks. I mean, and keep it, if it's great for older adults, it's going to be great for everybody from 0 to over 100. So active aging in Manitoba, let's have that shared vision and lots of action. And we're going to move from talking to doing. And we're going to end up with communities that are equitable and sustainable, where everyone is going to live healthier and happier. So active aging, let's do it now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That was a great presentation, lots of inspirational ideas, and I'm sure that you've given a lot of people on this call. I know there's groups that are doing a group viewing of this webinar, so thank you for participating. I know it's we're almost up to an hour, and if those of you who need to leave, I'm cognizant of that time, but if there's some of you that have questions, now is the time to ask. As Gil has agreed to stay on a little bit longer for a few minutes here. And I guess the one thing I wanted to do is see if I could share my screen with a listing of resources. So I'm going to see if I can do that. If not, you will get it emailed to you. I'm just, let's see here. Okay, there. Okay. Just a second. Okay. This is my screen of just some resources here that you can access. You might want to take a picture of it, but I'll also send it to you. It lists a few resources here in Winnipeg and also pertaining broader than Winnipeg. But they have a great resources available that you can use in your planning, or just if you want a bit more information about trails and open spaces, or transportation options for seniors. All of these places have great resources available that you can tap into and also find more information about this. So I just wanted to show that to you. So I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll let me see, and we'll just go back here. And so does anyone have any questions now for Gil that they'd like to ask? I'm just looking here. Oh, here is one. How do I get older adults who are hesitant to engage more in active transport without waiting for, you know, a big infrastructure changes? Is there something that you would recommend when you're wanting to encourage an older adult to access a park or to hop on a bicycle? Are there some things that you've done in the past that have worked?
Well, a few things. One is to let them know that it's only about 30 minutes a day. We're not asking people to run marathons. And even those 30 minutes do not need to be all at the same time. It could be 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the afternoon. And ideally, it should be as a normal part of everyday life. So if they're gonna buy milk, walk to the milk store. If you're gonna take public transit somewhere, get off 1 or 2 stops before the regular stop. Take a walk with the grandchildren. Uh, and just to try to get into a habit. Also, for example, the program that I was showing of open streets that you could do from May to September. You don't need to build arenas or gymnasiums. You have the streets. All you need to do is say, okay, during the summertime, we're going to do from May to September, we're going to develop these networks of streets that are going to be only for walking and cycling. And then many people that are usually have their cars, they're going to do it. So more than anything, we need to focus on the benefits. Let's show how this is going to lower diabetes, how this is going to lower obesity, how this is going to be good for heart. Like we had COVID. During COVID-19, other than the infection in the long-term care homes, which in many places the management was horrible, the #1 cause was people that was not in shape. The people that were mostly affected were people with obesity and were people with diabetes. So we need to be healthier because we don't know if there's going to be another similar situation. So this is, let's think what matters to the person, whether it's the health or the climate change or the economic development or what is it. So let's focus on that benefit and let's try to do something that is easily doable.
Thanks. That's a good answer there for everyone. Another question I've noted here is you mentioned programs in parks. That sounds like a great idea. Are there any best practice programs or ones that encourage more people than others that you've heard of?
Yes, one of the things is that cities, many times parks and recreation spend a lot of money in programs only for children and youth and nothing for older people. The reality is that, yes, between 20 and 60, people are focused on working and doing taking care of their own children. But afterwards, people over 60, we need programs. So it's not just about doing a walking path. We need to do walking groups. Also, because when this ties with the previous question, when people are walking by themselves, they look out the window and say, oh, it looks like it's cold, or it's too sunny, or it's too windy. But if they know that if there is a group that Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. and they are there, people go. And people say, oh, I'm going there because I want to walk. At the end of the day, walking is kind of the excuse. The reality is that people are going is because they're going to socialize. So yeah, multiple activities. So promoting these kind of activities, walking groups are very, very popular. Also because people gossip and they talk about their grandchildren and they talk about their vacations and they talk about politics and sports and other things. But also other things that work. Knitting in the park, especially May to September, is becoming very, very popular. And yes, people could be knitting at home. So they're going is because they want to be knitting with others. They want to be chatting. So it also depends on the level of physical activity of the person. But the more social activities that you program, the better that is going to have. Because keep in mind that loneliness is a huge, huge health problem. So we could actually do many benefits at the same time if people are physically active, but at the same time they can socialize.
Well, that's great. So it sounds like doing a variety of different things to appeal to a variety of different people sounds like a plan, many programs. So thanks for that. I'm looking here at any questions. It looks like a fair number of people have departed the webinar. So I don't see anything else. So I think then we'll end it at that. And I thank you so much for your time. I know you're a super busy guy, and we thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you for all the participants as well for joining us today. I know everyone has lots of things to do, and especially when it's nice outside, it's hard to want to come inside, at least it is for me, to listen to something. But I think this was definitely something that we need to hear. And I think that that I know that, Gil, you've provided AIM with some inspiration and things that we can do to move forward and making our outdoor spaces more attractive, and looking at ways that we can be more inclusive and more equitable in our planning processes. So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure this past hour, and wishing everyone a lovely day ahead. And thanks again. Take care.
Thank you.